mentioning, this has been shocking for many people to see that within some schools that are rated excellent, the Latino kids and the black kids are failing. And this data has really pushed the conversation, I think, further down on the Democrat side.
Even if educational choice, educational reform is a Republican issue, won't you agree that the Republicans will never be able to really pull this over the goal line unless Democrats have the courage to join them on some of these issues?
Well, yes, and partly because there are some Republicans that aren't that strong on school choice themselves, as we know that happened in Colorado. And so it really will take the Democrats. And it takes, with the strength of the teachers union, yes, it's going to take the Democrats. And it's going to take the Democrats to rally the troops, to rally the Latino moms. And for somebody to say, it's okay, we support this now. And once they hear that, I think we're going to really see them.
There's an opportunity for some pretty grand alliances that could be formed on this kind of things. I think there are some things that Democrats would support that they're not necessarily always comfortable with, that Republicans want, if they knew that Republicans were going to support some things that Democrats want. And there's a pretty big Venn diagram that could be formed on this that could end up helping a lot of kids.
We're talking about this as a national issue. You've been mentioning No Child Left Behind, but really education is a state and local issue, which is one of the reasons why Democrats for Educational Reform is working here in Colorado. You've been working with another courageous politician, Ron Tupa, who's going to be working with you. He's now term limited. He's only got a few months left, and he's actually going to be one of those politicians who stood up and said, you know, kids come first.
He is. He's a former teacher, and he's got a lot of experience in the legislature, I think.
And he's a Democrat.
And he's a Democrat, and he can have the legislator-to-legislator kind of conversations that sort of say, look, I know the pressure you're feeling right now, but we've got to do the right thing.
Does that message, how do you get that message? I mean, you've talked about Peter Groff and Terrence Carroll. When the coalition that helped put him in, you said without education, without the teachers, Democrats don't win. Those are the foot soldiers. They're the ones who knock on the doors and pick up the phone calls and stuff the envelopes during election time. They're the ones who pay lots of dues that go to unions, which go into contracts. So when those people call up somebody like Ron Tupa or Peter Groff and say, listen, you do this, we are turning off the spigot to you, we're turning off the spigot to the entire Democratic Party, which means all your Democratic colleagues are coming down on you. What's the message to them?
I mean, look, that you can push back, and this is not about, particularly on the Democratic side, this is not about obliterating the union. It's about standing up to the union and holding.
Explain the difference to me. What's the difference between obliterating and standing up?
We're not
because
talking about,
when you talk to somebody in the union, standing up and saying let Randolph School choose their own teachers, for them is obliterating it.
That's a great question, but it's to us as Democrats, it means a great deal. I mean, because we're not talking about imagining a system where the union doesn't exist. We're imagining a system where there's some checks and balances on the union, and where the union isn't the only one that's allowed to have an opinion about what happens in schools, and where elected officials can take sensible pieces of legislation, and even if there's some resistance to it, to know that they're doing the right thing and know that they're not just going to get paid for it, that there's going to be people out there that appreciate what they're doing.
I remember when Independence Institute at its inception in the late 1980s, early 1990s, really the champion for charter school legislation here in Colorado. And I heard from Democrats and from the labor unions that if we get charter schools here in Colorado, it's the beginning of the end. We cannot do it. And now I'm hearing labor and teachers expound the beauty of charter schools. So that was a real lesson. What did we learn from that?
Well, I think that we've learned that 150 charter schools, which is what we have in this state, hasn't destroyed the public education system. In fact, it's probably made it better because it's created competition. So I think that someday when kids are taking their little voucher to a private school, the same thing will be said, just like in what's happened in Milwaukee. The public schools, they have improved because there's more competition.
The other thing that happens with charter schools is once they're up and running and people in the community get to see the people that are working in them, these are not people that are trying to destroy public education. I mean, these are people who are out to save the world. And that, when you're talking about charter schools in an abstract concept, that doesn't come through.
You can't feel them, you can't touch them.
You can't touch them.
But when you go to Milwaukee or Cleveland or even now in D.C. and you go to these voucher schools or charters that take private money, you go, wait a second, these aren't evil. These kids are still the same kids.
And their families all have these compelling stories about why they chose the schools that they did. And that's very hard to say no to.
Now, here in Colorado, we actually have a fair amount of school choice that we've been able to eke out bit by bit. Not everybody knows about their school choice. You have put together a terrific website. I want to talk about that for a second because I think a lot of people don't know. You've always said to me, you don't send your kid to the doctor just because he happens to be the closest doctor. It should be the same way for your kid's school. Tell me about the website.
Well, the website can be found at www.schoolchoiceforkids.org, and it includes all of the private schools and all the public schools, including charters and every other kind of option in the entire state of Colorado. And there's 47 different categories that we put these schools in that parents can choose from. So if they really believe in the Montessori program, they can go into our website, put in their address, click on Montessori, and a map will come up and show them where the closest schools or the nearest schools are to their home.
And what's
That's
cool is you
example.
can actually click on the school, get all sorts of data on that school,
Go to the
including
school's
school
website.
website or the report card that the state does so that you can get that. It shows every public school choice that they have, and you can say, I want to look at something within 5 miles or 10 miles of my house, and you actually get a wonderful Google map that pops up and gives you all that info.
And it's all in Spanish as well. And we have beautiful little bookmarks in Spanish and English that we've been getting across the state to advertise the site because we really want all families to be able to embrace school choice. We also have lists of steps that parents can take to open and enroll their children into schools.
All right.
And information about private scholarships. There's a wealth of information on the
Again,
site.
it's schoolchoiceforkids.org. Schoolchoiceforkids.org. Check it out. It's just a wealth of information. All right, we got a minute or so left. Wrap this up. You're a Democrat. You're from the big city. You're coming out here to Colorado. You were in the DNC, and the fight has broken out among Democrats. Is it okay to stand up to the education establishment? What's the message for Democrats listening?
That this is the right time. I mean, that the planets are aligned in a way, particularly for those of us that support Senator Obama. We actually think he's capable of being very good on this issue. If we're set back right now, we're going to be set back pretty far. I mean, we've got to play to win right now. We've got to show that we're serious about supporting candidates and giving them the kind of support that they need to take courageous stands.
Can the Democratic Party survive and thrive if Democrats start embracing school choice?
Oh, yes, and I think the best way for Democrats to stay relevant on domestic policy issues like education is for them to think a little bit broader than they have been.
Be more competitive.
More competitive.
Joe Williams, thank you so much. Pam Benigna from the Education Policy Center, appreciate it. Tell you what, why don't you check out our webpage, that's independenceinstitute.org. From there you can always go to schoolchoiceforkids.org. Also, if you're looking for some entertainment at night, by all means, go to 850KOA.com, but also just 850KOA on your radio. Listen to me, give me a call, tell a friend. We'll see you next week. And now we need to sit there. Is that what you wanted? Happy?
I mean, you keep on talking, but you don't know where to turn it off.